When I first started to examine the text for a different production a long time ago, I divided the play into segments. Rather than worrying about the acts and scenes that you get in printed versions, because they were added at the time they were published, they were not necessarily designated by Shakespeare. So I divided the play into 5 parts. And the first part is called the prophecy. And the prophecy matters because Macbeth is given a glimpse into the future. You have the character of what are called the Weird Sisters. We now call them the witches, but that's how they're described, the Weird Sisters. And what the Weird Sisters do is tell him 3 things. They tell him who he is, they tell him who he will become soon, and they tell him who he will eventually be. They say he is Thane of Glamis. Well, he is. They say he will be Thane of Cawdor. But it's pretty common knowledge that the Thane of Cawdor is a traitor and is going to be executed, and that Macbeth is the national hero, so it's likely that he will get his title. And they say that he will become king hereafter. But the king is an old man, and Scotland was an elective monarchy. All the lords and lords got together at the end of a king's life and elected his successor. So it was pretty reasonable that they might suggest that Macbeth would be king. The problem of the play is that when he hears the prophecy, he decides to act on it. And so you move to the second segment of the play, the murder. And the murder is the political assassination of the king. Macbeth, convinced by his wife that we should do it now rather than wait, takes a political decision. It's a bit like, the Godfather. It's business. It's not personal, it's business. He likes the king. He thinks he's a great king. He's related to the king. The king is a guest in his house, but he follows what we might call the ambitious expedient of removing the king so that he can become the king. After this comes the problem. He is king, but he's not happy because he knows that his best friend is going to become father to a line of kings. Macbeth and his wife have no children. It's suggested, in fact, in the script that they had children, but they died. So Macbeth has no future, whereas Banquo, his friend, does. That angers Macbeth. Why should he have a future? So instead of behaving in a kingly fashion, he chooses to murder his friend. And we call that section the betrayal. Because in order to make himself stronger, he starts to betray his principles, he betrays his own honor, and he betrays his friend. At the end of that sequence, we move into the 4th, which we call the genocide. Macbeth is brought back to the witches, the Weird Sisters, and demands to know more. He wants to know how strong he is, how safe he is, having started down this particular line of attack by killing his friends. And he's given 3 more prophecies. He is told to beware Macduff, another lord and another friend. He is told that he cannot be defeated until Burnham Forest come to Dunsinane Hill, a thing which Macbeth considers impossible. It's very important. They don't say it will never happen. They give him a timeline. They say he's absolutely safe until. But again, he doesn't read the fine print. And they give him a 3rd prophecy, that he cannot be killed by anyone born of a woman. And of course, he says everybody's born of a woman, therefore I cannot be killed. And he then sets out, believing in his absolute security, on what we can only call the genocide. Macduff's family is wiped out. He doesn't just try to kill Macduff, who escapes. He kills his wife, his children, his servants, his cattle, everything. And that is a classic example of what happens when you move from dictatorship to megalomania. It goes crazy, and that has happened in Kosovo, it's happened in Rwanda, it happened in Cambodia, it happens anywhere where absolute power is granted to one person who becomes absolutely corrupt. And everybody around him has responsibility taken away from them. You can do what you like, it's okay. And that infects the world with evil. And then the final segment of the play is called the revenge. I could call it the redemption, but it's not. It's Malcolm, the son of Duncan, taking revenge on Macbeth. It's Macduff taking revenge on Macbeth. It's not about forgiveness. It's not about understanding. It's not about anything to do with the politics. It's about the human condition. You did that to me. I'm going to do it to you. So the solution to violence is another act of violence. And that, I argue, brings the play its full circle, and it will repeat again and again and again, because we never learn that violence doesn't solve anything.